In the trunk of my father's car, he keeps supplies at all times, or I think at all times. Some brushes, some Windex, some cloths, and also some silk flowers. He keeps them there just in case he happens to be out in the suburbs of Houston where my mother's gravestone is, as well as her mother's gravestone. And so that way, if he's out in that direction, which is about an hour away, he always has on hand with him some supplies to clean the headstones, to brush away the dust, to polish them, to take the vases and empty out the old water, put new foam in, and then add some seasonal silk flowers to my mother's headstone and some new kind of unfaded flowers. Well, that part is not entirely true. Well, my mother gets the new flowers, and then his mother-in-law gets the old flowers from As in life, so also in death. And while some of us do this custom, I've noticed that this thing that my father does, this habit of carrying and taking care of headstones and memorial places, is becoming increasingly rare, especially in our North American culture. Other cultures around the world have a different sort of approach to these tomb-keeping practices. And so many of us, and I count myself in that category, it's been years since I've been to that cemetery that my father visits. So many of us, I think, like me, think of a final resting place as truly that. It's a final resting place. It's a memorial stone. We've done our business of having a funeral, of saying farewell, of laying our loved ones into the ground, of giving them a nice headstone. And now it's time to move on, to live our lives. To live our lives with their spirit, but to go back and visit a headstone, much less to brush it and clean it and change the flowers. Well, I don't know. This isn't so common anymore. Whereas we as modern Americans, modern white Americans particularly, might just think of cemeteries as a place to sort of finally store the bodies of our loved ones. Tombs and cemeteries in Jesus' day did not operate in the same way. It says that they laid Jesus in a tomb that was cut into the rock in a nearby garden. Tombs in Jesus' day, these rock tombs, were not final resting places. In fact, maybe to much of our shock and horror, they were meant to be turned over. You would put a loved one there for a time, and once they would decay enough, you would take their bones, take them out, put them somewhere else, and someone new would move into the neighborhood. This is how it worked. That stone that we always romanticize on Easter as being this gargantuan stone that no one could possibly have rolled, it wasn't really a seal, not to be unbroken. It was a door that was opened and closed probably multiple times a year to take bodies out and put new bodies in. This was a transitory place. Moreover, often the tombs were not in some sort of gated cemetery like we have in the modern world. It says it's in a garden, but I suspect that really what it means is it was in a field. So often, they would just take these tombs because they weren't final resting places. They weren't memorials. They had a sort of a practical function, and they would just sort of carve them out of the stone on the side of a vineyard, or pasture land, or wheat crops. Jesus was in a transitory tomb in working land, on a farm. So it's no wonder that Mary asked the questions that she asked. First of all, that she supposes Jesus is the gardener. Because she's not in a cemetery. She's probably in a vineyard somewhere. And the people who are supposed to be responsible for taking care of these bodies are the farm workers. She supposes Jesus to be the gardener. She supposes Jesus to just be one of the farm workers. and also rightly asks, have you moved the body already? Because this is kind of what is supposed to happen. This would have been too soon. But she says, okay, well, maybe you moved it somewhere else, some other little storing chamber on the garden, out in the field. Can you tell me where it is? So there's nothing surprising about what she says. The way that they would have treated this tomb is not the way that we think about a gravestone, a final resting place, a lasting memorial for someone in a gated cemetery. And I think this changes often the way that we think about the resurrection. The resurrection does not occur in a place of final resting. It occurs in a place of transition. It occurs in a place that is not quite there yet. It occurs in a tomb that was meant to be unsealed, turned over. It occurred in a working garden, not in our land that we consider in cemeteries that is supposed to be filled in, compacted, hardened, never to be dug up. Jesus' resurrection occurs in a transitional tomb in dirt that was working dirt, that the gardener was meant to turn over and churn and keep from ever hardening. We sometimes think of the resurrection as a reversal, as if death does win the day for a couple of days. Evil wins the day for a couple of days while Jesus is in the tomb. All is lost. And then the resurrection comes in and reverses all of that and gets us back to normal. But that's not what happens at all. The resurrection occurs before death even completes its work. The resurrection occurs before Jesus' body is ever laid in a final resting place. The resurrection occurs before a tomb is ever sealed shut, never to be opened. The resurrection interrupts the process of death, does not reverse it. It gets ahead of it. Never once does death, in the face of Jesus' power of resurrection, ever have a chance to fill in that last bit of dirt, to close that tomb shut, to put Jesus in a final resting place. Resurrection comes and interrupts that process of decay, that process of death, and says, you will not finish your work. This changes the way that we think about resurrection. Not as just some sort of last-ditch hope that we can have. That when we really think something is over, we've hit rock bottom. We are irredeemable. We are unlovable. We have tried enough times and that is it. That we have walked away from that part of our life. That I am who I am, and at this age, there's nothing that can change. All of these processes that we dare think death has actually had its final word. We sometimes think resurrection might just be the surprise that wakes us up, but resurrection is not that. Resurrection never allows you to even declare something as finished. Resurrection interrupts the things that you have put into that tomb to decay, but never allows the tomb to ever win. Think about all the things that we have dug pits for in our life. And that maybe part of us even wants to put there in the pit to walk away. All of those tombs that we really would not like to unseal. All of those graves that we really would like to just be able to put in the ground and walk away and never return to visit again. Resurrection will not allow you to do that. In resurrection are pits of despair, are pits of hopelessness, are pits of grudges, our pits of shame, our pits of selfishness, none of these pits will resurrection allow to be filled in. It will always stop that process and begin creating something new. The resurrection is not a reversal. The resurrection is a miraculous process that keeps that dirt churning and turning and moving and growing, no matter how much we want it to just fill in and to walk away. So Mary is right when she supposes Jesus to be the gardener. That is exactly the image of the resurrection. The gardener that never allows any land to get hardened. So friends, on Easter, suppose that Jesus is the gardener. Suppose that Jesus indeed is the gardener of your life. And all of the places that you are tempted to call complete, to call finished, to walk away from, suppose Jesus is the gardener, keeping that soil fresh and loose, just awaiting the day that new life comes from that moment. In resurrection, we as Christians aren't just sort of proclaiming that God has some sort of divine rematch with evil and sin and the darkness of this world. There's no rematch that God just wins. God never allows it to have the final word. Resurrection is that proclamation that never once in Jesus' life does death get to win. Does that tomb get fully sealed? So on Easter, suppose, friends, that Jesus is the gardener. And all of those things that you have mistaken for a sealed tomb, all of those things that you have thought you can walk away from, even the things you want to. Suppose that that is just the ground for resurrection. And maybe, just maybe, you could visit an actual tomb. An actual graveyard, an actual cemetery, to visit these final resting places and to remind yourself that it is actually not final. It is just God's garden that God will continue to till and to nurture for the resurrection to appear. The resurrection is not a reversal. The resurrection is this creative power of God, Jesus, the gardener, who stops decay from ever having any sway over us, from any of our tombs being locked away. On Easter morning, suppose with Mary that Jesus is the gardener. Amen.